I'm going to compare AI advice for different speaking situations compared to a human. That human is me. Let's just see what she says. How do I stop being nervous before a presentation?
Presentation nerves. We've all been there. That racing heart, the sweaty palms, the feeling that everyone is going to judge you. It's completely normal. The good news is there are some really effective techniques you can use to manage those nerves. First, preparation is key. The more prepared you are, the more confident you'll feel. Know your material inside out. Practice in front of a mirror or record yourself or present to a friend first. Second, try some breathing exercises. Deep belly breathing, in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, activates your parasympathetic nervous system and genuinely calms your body down. Do this in the 5 minutes before you go on. Third, reframe your nerves. That adrenaline you're feeling, it's the same chemical as excitement. Try telling yourself I'm excited instead of I'm scared. Research actually shows this works. Fourth, visualize success. Spend a few minutes imagining yourself delivering the presentation calmly and confidently. Your brain doesn't fully distinguish between a vivid visualization and reality, so you're essentially giving yourself a practice run. And finally, remember that your audience is on your side. They want you to do well. Nobody is sitting there hoping you'll fail. They're just people, and most of them are probably thinking about their own stuff anyway. You've got this. The nerves won't disappear completely, but with these strategies, you can absolutely manage them. Presentation.
I daren't speak. I'm trying to stop myself from speaking. You know what? This is interesting. I've been talking to Claude. I've uploaded the books. I've been pushing back on Claude about AI advice. How can I get started with this? The first thing I'll say is if you don't know the subject, this is going to sound really good. Not my advice, her advice. I've named her Dolores. And her advice sounds good. And as I say, if you're not, you're just going to hear it and think, oh yeah, I should be doing all of those things. The second thing is it was quite a long list and I can't remember many of them. And I think that just shows you that it's not really related to actually your real life or real situation. God, it was so painful to watch, wasn't it? So, the one thing that jumps out at me right now is 5 minutes before, do some breathing exercise. I don't know why that just struck me as really funny. It's like, yeah, I've tried that. Like, I want to swear, but I'm going to try not to no. Like, yes, of course I've tried that. I've tried doing calming exercises beforehand. And actually, it can be calming beforehand. But you can feel, everything starting to get a little bit crazier as the time gets closer to the presentation. And then immediately before, it just goes to pot. I don't know how people stop that sudden whoosh of, okay, now I'm really nervous. I've done presentations when other people have been doing presentations, and it's clear to me that they are having a different experience to me. Yeah, they're having a different experience because I am so nervous and my mind is going blank and all of those different things. So what I wanted to say was if you've got this kind of AI advice, it is good as step one. If you've never had any advice, if you've never had any problems with speaking and you have a presentation to do and somebody says to you, practice in front of a mirror or somebody else, you may want to try all of that as step one, like do some breathing exercises before and the key is to practice and to know what you're talking about. All of that, let's just imagine that's generic advice for step one. And I am guessing you've probably thought of this advice yourself. I think you've probably said to yourself, oh, I need to practice for this, or I need to calm myself down, or whatever it is that you're saying to yourself. So let me just, I have to stop thinking about her. Do you know what frustrates me about it is that she sounds really good. It sounds like good advice. And for me, it was completely, I just couldn't do any of the advice. And so what happened was I blamed myself, and that, I can't do this, therefore I am the problem. So in terms of practice, she's thinking about a very specific type of presentation. And sometimes presentations can be a little bit more think on your feet, but let's just focus about a prepared presentation. A formal presentation. The first thing I would say to you is, if somebody says to you it's formal and it's, stand in front of the room and different things like that, being formal is your friend. It is actually easier to do a formal presentation than somebody just saying, oh, present on this. And it's all very casual and you don't know what's expected. So if it is a formal presentation, there are normally rules for how you go up to the front, what happens, whether you're expecting some applause, whether somebody's introducing you, and whether the slides, whether you manage the slides and different things like that. So in a way, that formality is your friend, in that you could check the room out, you could check the equipment out, and all those things. That familiarity is going to make you feel a little bit more in control. I know it feels scary. I think the thing is, it is going to feel scary if they say it's formal, and if they say standing at the front and there's a lectern and there's different things like that. That's all going to sound really scary and intimidating. But knowing exactly what happens at each step does help. It's like, oh, that person's introducing me. Then when they've said my name, I step up from my seat and I stand there. Or, oh, I shake their hand and then I stand behind the lectern, and then I start and I have my opening line. I would say for your first presentation, being formal is easier, and especially if you're not necessarily the first person to go up, because you will see that formality and that pattern. And it's like, okay, that's what happens. The second thing would be, have your first line memorized, and ideally a conclusion memorized. So this goes to the practice and stuff. I don't think practicing in front of a mirror is particularly helpful. I think you're going to be looking at yourself and picking faults and doing all things like that. I think it's useful to have looked in the mirror at some point just to make sure that all your buttons are done up and stuff like that. But I personally find looking in a mirror not helpful. I find it more helpful to imagine that the people in the room actually need help and need to know the thing that I'm saying to them. So that would probably be what I say. In terms of practice, some people say about practicing in front of a group or practicing in front of friends. Well, I practiced in front of friends and nearly died. I mean, it's just... They were friends. They weren't like bosom pals, but it was so embarrassing. In fact, I would say it was worse. Other than that, I do have a separate group of friends that I can practice, or I could practice a presentation in front of. But there's still that sense of, they know me and they know that this is important to me and they know that I'm worried and they know that I'm figuring it out. Personally, I didn't find it helpful. I didn't have that group of friends that I could practice in front of, and I didn't find it helpful to do the mirror thing. So let's go back. Formality, it does. I believe that formality is a friend, and that actually makes it easier for you. But I know when I'm saying that to you, if you're a few days out from the presentation, you're probably thinking, no, it's a formal, it's really important, and it's for this job, or it's for these grades and different things like that. But what would happen is, immediately before you were doing the presentation, if it was not formal, if it was all very casual, that's the moment where it would really hit you of, I don't know what room I'm in. I don't know who's going to be there. I don't know whether I'm supposed to stand up or remain seated. I don't know. So in a way that kind of hits you as a surprise just before, and the formality thing, it might feel quite hard in advance to have those thoughts and the idea that it's important, but actually gives you a chance to say, I do have to stand up. I will be behind a lectern. It is easier behind a lectern than actually just standing there. And in terms of difficulty, I would definitely say have your notes or have some sort of bullet points on a lectern. Ideally, what happens is it feels like it's a bit of a barrier between you and the people watching, and that can feel a little bit safer sometimes. So yeah, you could do with knowing is there a microphone or not. I mean, all these things are things that you would check beforehand. Do you need to practice? I think if you can run through the practice. Tell you what I used to do in the really early days, which I found quite useful, was I would type it out in full, because you're kind of trying to have your strong introduction and then a conclusion, and you're trying to have some clear points, and it's probably a simple structure of, just having 3 points that make your argument or examples or something like that. And then I would read it aloud, like without the notes. I'm not saying you have to do it without notes just yet, but I would read it out loud. And what I would find is sometimes I would struggle to remember, say, point 2 on my list. I would struggle to remember that. And then that would send me into a bit of a panic and stuff like that. And what I found was there was very often a key word that I was missing, and it wasn't an important word. It was normally a word like from or to or before or connect, like there's something, and then that's the bit that you need to highlight on your bullet points. You'll find that the linking word that, so for example, in point 1, you say practicing in front of the mirror doesn't work for me. And then point 2 is and I have no friends. To practice in front of, I'm just making this up on the spot, can you tell? Anyway, if you're struggling to remember point 2, it's about friends. So mirror, then there's going to be a word as you've said that phrase, as you've given that example, there's going to be, maybe it's remembering and, so, because it's all about practice, isn't it? These 2 points, it's like, and I don't have the friends. Like, so you may think to yourself, oh, the hard bit is remembering the point is about friends. I really hope this is making sense to you. But actually, in practice, what happens is if you remember to say and, you'll find that somehow unlocks the next point and helps you remember the next thing. So, yes, formal. Yes, practice. Ideally, remember your first sentence. When it comes to the rest, it's really hard to do a presentation and to read it all. It's really, really tricky to read in a natural way. It's much easier to have the bullet points. But on those bullet points for your main points, find out from the practice whether it's the and or before that or after that, or there's going to be some linking word that you reach for, that as soon as you grab that, it reminds you and unlocks something for the next point that you're going to make. So that's the value of the practice. The value of the practice is knowing, oh, my mind doesn't automatically jump to the next point. It becomes a list to remember unless I use that filler, linking, connecting word and different things. The other thing I would say is I do think it's a good idea to have memorized your conclusion. Now, there's something that can happen. This may evolve with the practice side of things, is that, let's say for me, 2 pages of A4, I think it's supposedly 3 to 5 minutes, and that's a size 14 font. I know that that amount of text or material was easily 5 minutes for me. But you don't know that yet, because even if you practice, you haven't had the real life experience in the room doing the presentation to know whether actually you speak a lot faster then, or you ad-lib a little bit and you start to speak a little bit slower, because I tend to ad-lib. That as I say, there's the practice beforehand, and then really the presentation. The presentation and the first time you do it is practice as well. Sorry, things flashing up on my screen at the moment. So, but that is so useful to know. So the first time you do a presentation, time yourself. Say, okay, this was this many sides of A4 at this size font, and it took me 10 minutes in my practice. And then when you get to the real life thing, you'll say, oh, I ran out of time, or whatever it is that you experience. But that is giving you useful information for the next time you do the presentation. One of the tips I would say is, yes, you do need to have a clear conclusion. Ideally, if it's key to you that you make 3 points, let's say in the body of this you're making 3 points, I would go 1, 2, and I'd get to my third point and then have time to expand it, because then you know if you're running out of time you can cut that one short and then do your conclusion point. One of the things I see people do is they'll say midway through, I mean their introduction is super long. That's what happens, is they accidentally get nervous and do too long of an introduction, and then they're struggling for time, and so they're midway through their time slot and they say, and I've got 3 points. You're not going to have time for your 3 points. And then they try to squeeze in their 3 points and never get to the conclusion. You need to have a tight introduction, get to your 3 points, get to it, and then expand on that, and you should have some indication of time, and you'll have time for your conclusion. And to say, the introduction and the conclusion, I tend to find that they're one line, and it's clear the particular words that I want to use, and the link word before the title, just like the link word before my different points, is the part that's really critical. Don't fight the way your brain naturally works. If the order of it is confusing to you in the practice run through, not in front of a mirror, and or his imaginary friend. Oh, I hope you have more friends than me, but not if you don't have friends and the mirror thing doesn't work, you could still read it out loud. It does feel more uncomfortable standing up reading it out loud than sitting down. So, be gentle with yourself. You're trying to discover roughly how long does it take me to do this, and then maybe if your first run through is sitting down, stand up the next time. Roughly how long does it take me to read through this aloud, and do I naturally ad-lib a little bit, and what are those link words? I'm bouncing around. I'm not like Dolores at all, am I? I'm very human in my advice because I have been through this. I'm not a large language model with my points clearly made out. But anyway, there you go. That's the difference between AI advice and a human giving advice for your presentation. Bye.